Hi, Ellen. How you doing?
I am fabulous. That was a fun graphic. I was like, "Oh, look, my name is on a phone." It's very good.
I love your Christmas tree. It's
Thank
uh,
you.
it's it's great. Have you ever tried Guinness Zero?
No, I have not, but for more reasons than it being 0. Guinness
Yeah. Well, if Guinness isn't your thing, then that's fine.
yeah,
That's fine.
Guinness
Um,
0, I mean, I feel like that's taking all the joy out of it completely, but
well, I
okay.
thought I thought that until I tasted it, and actually, that's not quite the case.
Okay,
But
okay.
but anyway. So for people who may not, I doubt there's anyone watching who's not seen your videos or read your stuff this year. But just in case, introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Okay. You know what? So this was gonna be my thing this year. I was gonna get better at introducing myself. I'm so bad at this. So my name is Allyn. I'm at Smart Recruiters. I focus on conversations around what is the future of hiring going to look like and how do we support making that happen. So I do a lot of brand stuff. I drive a lot of work around hiring success, and that's what I do. Lots of little tentacles in that space.
No, fantastic stuff, and it's been a very big year for smart recruiters, isn't it?
It has been. It's been a
Yeah.
huge year for us. It's been
Mm.
actually a super exciting year. It's been a fun year to be a part of it. It's always fun to be part of an organization where there's kind of an influx of energy and innovation and excitement happening. The other thing for people who may not know me or follow me a lot, I get bored very easily and and I'm always hoping things get a little bit more exciting and let's push to the next extreme. What's the next thing we can do? So it's been fun to be involved in an entire organization that's thinking that way right now, which is super cool.
No, absolutely, and we were both on the Purple Acorn prediction show that we recorded a
Yep.
few weeks ago, which I think is running again tomorrow. Actually, it ran on Christmas Eve, but in case you were doing something else on Christmas Eve and you didn't see it, I think it's running again. It's running again tomorrow. So predictions, all those kind of things, kind of been a big topic, and there's a few things I kind of want to ask you
Mhm.
in that ilk. But before we do, what's the thing about 2024 that surprised you the most?
That's a great question. What's the thing that surprised me the most? Um, I was listening to Rona talk a little bit, and I actually think I'm going to connect to something that she said. What surprised me the most was the continued lack of comfort and ability to understand how you can leverage and utilize, particularly these AI tools that are becoming available for you, right? You talked about this a little bit just a few minutes ago as well, but it shocks me how little people are still sitting on the sidelines,
Mm, mm.
and that is amazing to me because I can't imagine how you haven't heard about it by this point, or how you haven't figured out you need to figure out what to do.
No, I mean absolutely. I've probably spent the last few days, in this kind of quiet time, literally just checking every aspect of my business operations to see if I've got, AI properly wired into it. And there were so many areas where I was like, hang on a minute, why am I doing this when this can happen? So, this serious stuff. It's happening right now. It's not something to kind of to be ignored at all, is it?
It absolutely is not. It's
Mm.
here. It is now fully embedded into most of our experiences. And I think people not thinking about how they are personally engaging with it and adapting to it are setting themselves up for a world where they are shocked and amazed when everything else around them is controlling them through it. I mean, I'm going to be that's coming that bold about it, right? If you are
Yeah.
not in control of it, it will eventually control you. You figure that piece out on your own, everyone.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. We'll come back to that in a second. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, just in terms of general workplace trends, I know this is something that you've kind of spoken about before, is the whole idea about remote work, hybrid work, where do we work, what do we do? You've got some strong views on that in terms of what's going to happen in the next 12 months, don't you?
I love how you say that, strong views. Of course I have strong views. It's like, I do. I have strong. Listen, I think that we have been letting the tail wag the dog a little bit. And what I mean by that is that we've been letting kind of these corporate conversations around remote work and hybrid work and all of that sort of stuff drive us when the real conversation, the real shift is going to be around autonomy. And autonomy is a bigger question. It is, do you trust me as somebody you have hired to know when, how, and where to get the work done so that I'm contributing the way I need to. right? Autonomy requires a different level of trust and alignment. It's past engagement. But I think that's where we're headed. And the translation of that is, how do companies get out of the conversation of, do I trust you to work remotely, to, do I trust you to work, right? To do
Mm,
your thing.
mm,
And if
mm.
I don't, then why are you here? Like, there is that level of conversation I think we're going to pitch into in this next year in a
And I
deeper
think the other aspect of this, which I'm surprised doesn't get talked about as much in the whole, so and so says everyone has to go back to the office. The
level.
opening up of global talent pools, the accessibility of talent for organizations. We've never had this before, have we? And
Well, we've
the
never,
implications around it are huge.
the implications are very huge. I mean, no,
Mm,
we've never had it before. And I will say it is an area that's actually really challenging because how we work, the laws around work, who's available and who can work in different spaces in different countries is very diverse, right?
yeah.
We operate in kind of even in the U.S. state by state. Now we start talking globally; it's country by country. There's all sorts of laws and legislation around how work happens and how we connect people to work and how people support work. That becomes hugely complex. So this idea of you can hire anybody from anywhere, yes, and right? Do
Mm.
you have the infrastructure in place? Do you have the mechanisms to support it? And do you have a way to manage and mitigate this kind of basically huge taxation problem, which is really what this is at its root?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's almost like if there's debate and conversation to be had,
Mhm.
it kind of should be about that, not
Right,
some
right.
CEO thinks everyone needs to sit in front of his office or whatever it is. And it's and also I suppose something else that I'm keen to get your thoughts on is there's a whole set of cultural norms around work and around talent acquisition, things that haven't changed in hundreds of years in some case. Everything from, the 5-day work week to you need to send a resume with a cover letter and you have an interview where people ask you questions and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of part of the fabric of how people think about work. And I think that next year, I mean, we saw some challenges to them this year, but I think next year a lot of those things are going to be turned on their head, and that is gonna freak quite a lot of people out. I think, and I just get a sense of that might be what next year's about. What do you think?
I love where you're going with that because I do think that's a lot of what we're going to see, right? Is when you start to remove the boundaries or conditions that kind of force us to do things the way we've always done them, right? And you start to get a few people here and there, they're going to start asking questions like, well, why do we do it that way? Or what would happen if we didn't? Or could we try this? And you're going to get more and more people starting to ask those questions as more freedom starts to enter how I do the work. That's gonna yeah, it's gonna be like opening up all the cages to the zoo all at once. And let's see if we can navigate that. That's gonna be super
Yeah. No, absolutely. And even in the world of internet recruitment,
fun.
you have that as well. So I have in a couple of weeks' time, I've done a podcast interview with Jeff Taylor, the guy who started Monster 30 years ago, or
Yeah.
whatever it was, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And in that, he talks about there were decisions that he made about how CV databases work and how job postings look and what they're called, that he is astounded still kind of move on, still kind of live on today. And it just shows you sometimes how we can just get stuck in very unhelpful ways of doing things. And
It's
yeah,
yeah, it's typical. We iterate, we don't innovate,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It is one of my favorite quotes from last year, and I'm just gonna keep pushing it out. We have to start um instead of building faster horses, build better things, better ways
Mm,
of doing things, right? Going back to that old analogy from, Henry Ford, if you ask people what they want, they're just going to want to have more efficient, quicker, easier ability to do what they do today. If you can free your mind, if we can all have this opportunity, take this new year, take a deep breath and say, just ask yourself a couple of questions every morning. What if I didn't have to do it that way? Like, what would I do? If
mm.
I didn't have to, what would it look like? And I think we'll all be amazed by the types of answers we'll have for ourselves. A great example is we started this last year. I think it's going to be big going into this next year. We have a preconceived notion of who has to be involved in the hiring process,
Mm.
right? Why do we add 50 million people when the truth of the matter is maybe it's really just about that hiring manager? What does that look like then? If I didn't have to have 10 people involved and 5 different people signing off on a piece of paper and reviewing my interview questions and etc., what would I do? How would I do it differently? Right?
Mm, mm,
Those are the basic questions. If I didn't have to, what would I do?
mm. And what do you think one thing is in HR or talent acquisition that kind of remains unchallenged, but you would either like to challenge or you think is going to be challenged fairly soon?
I feel like you know my answer to that. You just went straight up for it.
I don't actually.
You don't know? It's,
No,
Kyle Deganis always tells me I'm always killing everything off. Listen, I think the CV and the resume has had its day.
of course. Yeah.
I think that's a given. And I know that sounds really basic, but it is time now, people. We have new tools to gather structured and unstructured data from people. We have the opportunity to have conversational based inputs. We have AI that can help us assess and understand at the blink of an eye information that we were trying to get off of a sheet of paper that defined a person. I think it's ridiculous that we all think we can stand up and explain and understand what somebody is capable of by looking at a piece of paper. I just don't think that that's realistic anymore. And I think we got to give it up. Now, that's easier said than done, because the minute you remove the CV, you have now basically taken the linchpin out of everything for how our process works today.
Yeah.
All hiring starts with, tell me who you are on a piece of paper. If I remove that, then how do I post a job? What do I ask for in return? How do I collect the information? How do I assess that information? How do I now interview differently if I'm not looking at a piece of paper? Like, those are the big questions, but that will be, once you pull that thread, I think that's the thread, everything starts to unravel and we start to have the opportunity to do it differently.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it comes back to that, it's not even a cultural norm. As you say, it's that kind of bedrock of the way that lots of things are structured. But it's going to be very interesting to see, to see what happens there. But also, I don't think this is a passive thing. It's not for people to watch and see what happens. It's for people to step up and drive change. I don't think there's ever been a time that I can remember. And I know, it's very difficult for lots of people. There's lots of changes, people losing their jobs, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, though, huge opportunity for people to do things differently and step up and,
Right.
invent the future. Definitely.
In the midst of big change like this, the people who will survive and the people who will thrive will be the ones who can ask the question, what if I did it differently? And then try and create that opportunity and that experience, right? Because if you're relying on doing it the old way, faster, more efficiently, et cetera, eventually it will be efficiency to the point you're no longer needed. Then what are you going to do? If you haven't pre-thought that out, built the next plan, been part of the new picture, you're not going to be in front of the line for the new opportunities, and then there won't be any. I mean, it's the nicest way I can say that. That sounded
Absolutely.
like people stalking. That's not the way I meant it. But I did mean, yeah, you gotta be. This is the time to be on the front line. You can't sit back and wait for somebody else to show you what to do.
Couldn't agree with you more. And on that note, I'll see you again in 2025. Happy New Year in advance. Allyn, it's been great to talk to you. And we're going to move on to our next guest.
Awesome.
Very exciting. Cheers. Thank you.